The Piano Man. Dave's bright idea to solve the problem of mounting bills turned him into a superhero and a basket case. He couldn't explain it, nor could he prove it, but he was certain that it was a piano that was responsible for his superpowers, what he now referred to as his curse. One stupid little accident in his life took a crazy turn that now had him wondering how he was going to stay alive. As Dave headed toward the door, his 3-year-old son perceived that he was leaving and ran toward him with his hands raised as high as they could go. This meant he wanted his father to pick him up. Dave did so, tightly but gently hugging his son and telling him he'd be back in just a little while. "I love you. Be good for Mommy," he said, and lowered his son to the floor. Several weeks ago, Dave's piano tuning business was in a slump. There had been slumps before, but this one was going on so long that he had started dipping into his savings to pay his monthly bills. He decided to run an unusual special for his type of business and put out an ad saying, "Buy one, get one free." This was clearly silly at first glance because very few people, if any, have 2 pianos. But Dave figured what would happen is that 2 people who knew each other would split the cost of a tuning, with the purchaser designating their friend to receive the second free tuning. Or, with no time limit on the deal, someone could get one tuning now and another one later. As it turned out, he got only one call from the ad, and after tuning that woman's piano, she gave her free tuning to her sister. And that's what ruined Dave's life, and apparently there was no turning back. After Dave gathered up his tools, collected payment, and the address of Abigail's sister's house, he thanked her for calling to confirm that now would be a good time to head over. The weather was perfect, but Dave didn't mind working on a beautiful Saturday. He was glad to have the work. Maybe the sisters would tell their friends with pianos what a good job he'd done, and he'd get more work soon. The further Dave drove, the more he noticed the decline of the neighborhoods. When he finally arrived at Gloria's, he double-checked the address and confirmed he was at the right place. This house did not resemble those of his usual customers in any way. There was an old beat-up car in the driveway. Old, dirty toys were left out on the lawn and appeared to have been there for some time. The paint was peeling from the siding, and one of the bedroom windows was covered with cardboard. He wouldn't have expected there to even be a piano inside, but if there was, it made sense for Abigail to give her free tuning to her sister. She probably couldn't afford it on her own. Dave grabbed his tool bag from the passenger seat and went up to the front door, telling himself he'd make this as quick as possible. They probably didn't play much anyway and wouldn't notice if the pitch was a tiny bit off here and there. The door swung open and a woman said, "Are you the piano guy?" "Yes, I am," Dave answered. "Come on in," the woman said, pulling the screen door open. "You'll have to ignore the mess. I wasn't expecting anyone today." "That's no problem at all," Dave said, following Gloria and stepping over a soiled disposable diaper lying on the dirty wooden floor. He saw the piano against the wall next to the dining room table. Boxes, magazines, and miscellaneous junk was piled on top of it. Gloria removed everything, setting it all on the table. It was an upright Weber that he thought might have looked very nice if it wasn't coated with dust and scratches. At least this won't take long, he thought. Dave got right to work, lifting the top board and removing the upper front board. He set his tool bag on the bench, opened it and removed several foam wedges and his tuning lever. "Care for some coffee?" Gloria asked. "Thank you, but no, I'm fine." He had glanced in the kitchen when he entered the dining room, and seeing the unsanitary condition, he felt it wouldn't be safe to drink from any dish that came from there. "Well, if you change your mind, I'll let you know, thank you." "Do you need the volume on the TV turned down?" "No, it won't affect my tuner at all. Do you happen to know how long it's been since your last tuning?" "I guess they would have tuned it in the store before they delivered it, and that would have been, about 6 years ago? It was a gift from my dad. He bought both of us one, Abigail and me." "Oh, I see. That was very nice of him." I probably could have got a car with what he spent. Not a real good one, but something better than that piece of shit I got out there. And I don't even play the damn piano. Does anyone in your family play? Nope. Gloria stood just inside the kitchen, sipping coffee and watching Dave. He wondered what he was doing here as he took his digital tuner out of his bag and lowered the top board to set his wedges on top of it. Does someone plan on starting or maybe taking lessons or something? Not really. Teddy bangs on it now and then, but no one else. I see, Dave replied, but without really seeing. He clamped his tuner at the top of the left sideboard and inserted his thickest wedge between the lowest bass strings. Abigail said she paid for the tuning, so I wasn't going to turn down something free. You know what I mean? Yep, he replied, and began tapping the lowest key and adjusting the tuning nut as he did so. Maybe the buy one get one free was a pretty bad idea after all, he thought. But now he was even more determined to do a quickie job. No one would even know if the pitch was terribly off. He tuned the bass strings up to middle C, then switched to the other end of the piano. He started tuning the high end with a couple Pabst treble mutes, quickly working his way back to the center. After a few minutes, he used the Pabst and wedges together, and that's when it happened. He was hitting a key with his left hand, tapping on the tuning lever with his right hand for tiny incremental movements, and one of the Pabst mutes fell off the top board and hit a string somewhere inside the piano. When the plastic mute created a high tone on impact, it blended with the lower tone he had been playing, and suddenly he heard a weird harmonic that made his ears itch for a second. He tilted his head as if to shake water out of his ear, and felt a little silly doing it. He turned to see if Gloria was still watching him, and as soon as he looked at her, images flashed into his mind. First was the face of a man with fat, unshaved cheeks and close-cropped hair, with a diagonal scar cutting across the natural part on the side of his head. Then a young boy, his face frozen in a painful scream, a belt with a large metal buckle arcing through the air, white flesh with welts, lacerations, and dripping blood. Then the boy's face again, but closer in, focusing on his eye, which was red and puffy all around the eye socket. Dave shook his head again, hoping to clear the nasty images that seemed to originate from somewhere outside his own mind. His heart was racing, and he felt like he'd just witnessed a terrible car wreck. "Are you all right, mister?" Dave heard Gloria's voice, and he snapped back to life. The images stopped. They lingered in his memory, but they stopped coming in fast and furious in vivid 3D. "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks." "Well, you look like you saw a ghost. A big, mean one." "I think I'm not feeling all that well, actually. I'll be finished in a few more minutes, then I'll head on home and lie down." "Can I get you some water?" "Thanks, but I'm okay." He almost laughed, thinking about how people always offered a glass of water no matter the problem. Aliens studying Earthlings would conclude that we thought water was a cure-all for dizziness, heartbreak, loss of a loved one, and so on. Dave quickly tuned the remaining strings and noticed his hands were shaking each time he inserted the mute. He didn't even try for perfect pitch now. He left some strings a little sharp and others a little flat, and he justified it by telling himself that no one here played the piano anyway. He just suddenly felt the need to get out of this house. He replaced the upper board when he was finished, put his tools in his bag, and let Gloria know that he was all done. Teddy should notice a definite improvement. As he walked toward the door, he said, "Thank you, and thank Abigail. Enjoy!" As he reached for the door, it quickly swung inward, hitting his hand and then his head and knocking him backwards. The back of Dave's legs hit the side of the couch behind him, and he fell backwards onto it, then rolled into a sitting position. He put a hand on his head where the pain was. "Who the hell are you?" a voice roared. Dave looked up at a big, burly man staring down at him. His heart felt like it jump-started and went into overdrive. "Just calm down. He's the piano man. You can call my sister if you don't believe me." "We already have a piano." He ain't selling 'em, you dope. He tunes 'em up. I hope you ain't paid him, 'cause we ain't got no money to be throwing away on this nonsense. Abigail paid, so don't worry about it. The man walked toward the kitchen, revealing a small boy who had been standing behind him, completely hidden by his big legs. Dave felt his muscles turn to water, his brain seized, and suddenly it was hard to breathe. The man and the boy, they were the ones. He'd seen them just a few minutes ago when the terrible images flashed into his mind like lightning strikes. The boy had a swollen lip and a black eye. Don't be rude, Teddy. Introduce yourself to the piano man. The boy was biting the skin off his upper lip and glanced at Gloria, then looked back at Dave. My name is Theodore, he said, then shifted his eyes toward Gloria as if he expected her to say something. Dave was glad for something to focus on for a moment as he waited to feel normal enough to stand up and walk, so he could get out of this strange house. Hi, Theodore. It's nice to meet you. My name is Dave. He put out his hand and Theodore slowly came forward and shook it with his tiny hand. His name is Teddy. Don't listen to him, Gloria instructed from the kitchen, just out of sight. Dave saw a barely perceptible shake of Theodore's head. I fixed up your piano, Teddy. It should sound a lot better the next time you play. The boy mouthed the name Theodore in response. The brief exchange with the boy did what Dave was hoping, and gave him a slight sense of normality. He felt extremely awkward about the fact that he had been knocked in the head by the man of the house without even a hint of an apology. But he decided it didn't matter. He would just say goodbye again and get the heck out of there. He stood up and the boy took a few steps back. One foot landed on the diaper, and he lost his footing and fell, landing on his butt. He started to cry, and suddenly the big man appeared in the room like a fast-moving freight train. What are you crying for now? Are you trying to wake up your baby sister? He bent down and grabbed one of the boy's hands and hauled him up and dragged him out of the room and down a hallway. Dave could hear the man yelling and the boy crying. He couldn't believe these people. I'll see myself out. Thank you, Gloria. He didn't hear what she said in response as he quickly made his way outside. The outside air felt great. He almost wanted to stop and just breathe it in. But he still felt compelled to get away from this house and this family. He felt sorry for the boy, but he could do nothing for him, so he tried not to think about him.